Welcome, everyone. If we could call this meeting to order. If we could please start with a moment of silence for prayer or reflection. Thank you.
So first up, we have adoption of the agenda.
Any additions? Seeing none.
Next, we have adoption of the minutes. Item 3.1 on page 6, you'll find minutes from our December 4th meeting.
Errors, omissions? Okay, seeing none.
Moving on now to presentations. Item 4.1 is our first presentation tonight. In the packet, you'll find the information under the Public Services Committee minutes. We have Rose Sanchez here, who is chair of the Library Board, and she's presenting on the 2018 to 2020 Medicine Hat Library Plan of Service.
Welcome, Ms. Sanchez. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight. So I'm Rose Sanchez. I am chair of the Medicine Hat Public Library Board, and I am pleased to be here to tell you about our plans for the next 3 years. So provincial legislation, which for us is the Alberta Libraries Act, requires our library board to create a plan of service based on community needs. In essence, the plan of service is our roadmap. The process for the development of the 2018 to 20 plan was 2 years in the making. We undertook a community needs assessment in the fall of 2016, asking stakeholders to identify needs in the community. Then we gathered additional information from surveys and interviews. Library staff offered their input around the community feedback and identified ways the library could address the identified needs. We are also grateful for the advice, examples, encouragement, and support received from the Public Library Services Branch and other public libraries in Alberta, and that there is the board that is responsible for the newest plan of service that's served for the last couple of years. So the board has maintained the mission and vision for the library, serving as a community hub that provides equitable and convenient access to books, media, information, and programs that help to educate, enrich, entertain, and inform. Our vision is to be a valued resource, fostering lifelong learning and enhancing the vitality of the community now and into the future. For the past few years, you will have heard our board speak a lot about bringing the library to the community. We want more people to learn what the library has to offer and rediscover the space that is more than just books. We began that process with our 100th anniversary celebrations in 2015 by asking people to look at us now. With our newest plan of service, we continue to focus on building connections to ensure the whole community has access to library services. Our new plan of service is aspirational. We want to assist more people with more services in more places. To that end, it includes 3 strategic directions. The library is a facilitator of information. The library fosters a sense of community and belonging that is inclusive. And library and board and staff members are the library's greatest champions. We want to see an increased knowledge of community events and services. We want program participants to feel they have an increased knowledge in the topics presented. We intend to increase the circulation of our human library collection, and we want to meet the demand for grade school level tutoring within the library. We want to foster a sense of community and belonging that is inclusive. We believe the library is the great equalizer. It doesn't matter one's age, education, or poverty level. When you walk through the doors of the library, anyone has access to the information and services provided, and we want to expand those services out into the community. We want to partner with more organizations. We want to ensure new immigrants and refugees are aware of the resources available. We want to offer diversity-themed programs and host travelogue programs which explore other cultures. We want to increase our relationships with seniors' residences, And we want to create at least 3 more pop-up libraries and a satellite library location. An example of a pop-up library would be attending the weekly farmers markets through the summer months, where we take books and materials people can borrow, and we also allow people to drop off items at that location or sign up or renew their library cards. Our partnership with the Medicinet College through the One Community, One Card program allows people to possess either an MHPL library card or a college library card and have equal access to both locations, which has increased our library usage. Our board has been talking about expansion for a while because it's something we think is needed in Medicine Hat. Library usage studies show that the closer one lives to a library, the more likely that person is to use the services. That does prove true in our own stats. So if we can bring library services closer to those outlying areas of the city, particularly the south side, we know library usage would increase. I'll be honest, we don't know what expansion looks like yet. Is it a second bricks and mortar location, or simply a space in another facility that is open for regular hours and staffed? We do believe that a satellite location includes space for programming, so it too can be about more than just books. The board agreed to set the bar high, be aspirational, and put it in our plan of service, and see what happens so those conversations can begin. We as board trustees and staff want to increase the library's profile in the community, promoting programs and services. We want to have a presence at important community events, communicate with elected officials and community groups, and build upon our fund development policies. For MHPL, 2018 to 2020 is about continuing our mission to educate, enrich, entertain, and inform. The next 3 years, we will do so by strengthening and building relationships in our community. After all, at MHPL, we connect people to people, people to place, and people to learning. Thank you. I can entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councillor McIntosh?
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a comment. I spent the last 2 years as a trustee on the library board, an absolutely tremendous group of people that I had the chance to meet that are working incredibly diligently to create this wonderful environment in our community. And I need to thank the board. I need to thank Rose for the presentation tonight. As well, we have a number of staff members in the audience as well. So thank you very much for all of the work that you do to continue to make the library such an important part of our community.
Thank you. Councillor Varga?
I too thank you for the presentation and the way it looks for the future of the library. Just 2 questions, or 1 question, I guess. Can you explain to me what a satellite library looks like and what a pop-up library looks like? Just
Sure.
so I'm...
So a pop-up library is a library that's not going to be there permanently. It's, like I said, kind of farmers markets were there. We weren't there through all the summertime, through the farmers markets this last year. A pop-up library might take place, maybe we choose to take some books and some materials out to a park and have a table set up and people could borrow some materials there. So they're not really permanent locations, and they're just kind of opportunities for us to take materials to different spaces. Community gatherings, we could have little pop-up libraries. A satellite location to us is more permanent, so it's something that's set up and people know that it's there. It's there on a constant basis. It might have certain hours. And again, we kind of see that as a space where we could actually offer some programming. So maybe some story times or some speakers could come in and present. Maybe we could have a travelogue edition there. So they're a little bit different in terms of the things you can do in those spaces and how long they're there for.
Just supplementary, can a school be a satellite pop-up that you could use on a different occasion? That maybe they don't have that much resources to have a bunch of books and...
Sure, I think that we're probably open to any ideas and suggestions that way. And if it's something that we think is going to be valuable and benefit the citizens of Medicine Hat, then we're certainly willing to look at that and see if it's a possibility.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Turner?
Thank you, Your Worship. So thank you very much for the report. The library truly is a great resource. I'm just wondering if you could tell me how many people actually have library cards in Medicine Hat?
You bet. So we have just under 12,000 library card holders. That's adults, because of course children's cards are free. And our gate counts have averaged about 22,000 per month, both this year and last year actually. So we do see a high usage of our library. And you have to keep in mind, you don't necessarily have to be a card holder to use our services. People can come and just sit in the library. They can come here and study. They can take in a movie, and they don't have to have a card to do that. So we think that obviously there's a lot more usage than there probably is being captured even. But we do want to encourage people to get a membership, because then we can track our usage better and see exactly how many supporters we do have.
Well, really, for a membership of $5 a year, you can't really find a better deal in Medicine Hat.
Absolutely.
That's basically the price of a coffee, almost, so.
Thank you. Councillor Friesen?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Rose, for your presentation. We heard this at Public Services Committee, so I'm really glad you could come today and give it again. And to the staff and the board members who are here and giving us your evening this close to Christmas, thank you very much for that, too, and all you do. I just, you know, a couple of things. First of all, one of them is you don't have to have a library card to access some of the wonderful things that go on at the library, but it really is helpful to the library to know who's coming through the doors and what kinds of events or activities or learning opportunities they're accessing. And the second thing that people don't realize is that you can have a library card and never actually enter the door, which is the reverse thing that happens, where you can actually access, you know, many of the resources, wonderful resources the library has to offer without ever entering the door, simply through your library card. Endless opportunities. You can find out, reading a book is just one little tiny part of it. If your windshield wiper breaks, then you want to fix it yourself and not go to the service station, you can figure out how to do that too online at the library, and everything in between and past that as well. So yeah, I love the library. I'm biased, I realize that. But it really is a community place, and it's not, you've got it on your materials now, not just about books anymore, and that could not be more than true. So thank you for all you do. I'm excited about the new opportunities with the library. I was there when you opened, and it's just, you've done a beautiful job. So looking forward to another great year.
Thank you.
Councillor Turnbull?
Thank you. Well, as your newest council member to be appointed to the library board, I've only been there for 3 or 4 meetings. I want to thank you all for welcoming me and showing me the ropes, and I got big shoes to fill from our former representative, but I will endeavor to do as good a job as Jamie, so thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Sure. Oh, go ahead, yes. Councillor Summers.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for that presentation. I think the timing for the strategic plan for the library couldn't be better. You know, the city's going through some challenging financial times, and everybody needs to really be strategic about some of the things they do, so I'm glad this came about now. Seeing as I just stopped working there 2 weeks ago, I'm too nervous to ask any hard questions, but so I'll give you a pass this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments, questions? We just had the grand opening of your theater as well, which should hopefully draw quite a few more people in there as well. It's beautiful what's been done in there. So, no more? Can we get a motion for reception? We can vote. That was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on now to our second presentation tonight, item 4.2. This relates to item 7.3 in your packet. It's the HatSmart 2018 Residential Incentive Program. We have Jarrett Dickey, who's our Manager of Utilities Business Support. Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Dickey.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. I'm very happy to be here tonight to present the 2018 HatSmart program. So HatSmart was first introduced within the City of Medicine Hat back in 2008. It was the a result of work conducted by an ad hoc advisory committee to bring environmental priorities to life. The HatSmart program educates consumers and promotes energy conservation and renewable energy initiatives within the city. The program saves money through energy conservation measures and the use of renewable energy sources. HatSmart is a very popular program and an environmental initiative that helps residential utility customers save money through energy-conscious home upgrades. Our recommendation is a program length of 1 year. Introducing a 1-year program allows the city to continue strategic planning as well as continue conversations with Energy Efficiency Alberta to better align with their incentives. The 2018 program is a forward-looking program that is progressive. The funding for this program comes through the Environmental Conservation Charge, which is administered to consumers that use more than 950 kilowatt hours of electricity per month and 18 gigajoules of natural gas. The funding matrix on this slide outlines the 4 incentives we're focusing on for 2018. Solar PV systems, EnerGuide ratings for new homes, Energy Star rated clothes dryers, as well as air sealing. The funding matrix outlines the maximum rebate amount as well as anticipated rebates providing the full incentive. The solar PV system rebate would offer 75 cents per watt up to a maximum of $5,000. This rebate can be stacked with Energy Efficiency Alberta's incentive of 75 cents per watt for a total incentive of $1.50 per watt. This represents approximately 50% of the project cost. The benefits of this program is that it would save customers approximately 145,000 kilowatt hours per year with an estimated installation of 6.7 kilowatts. This could save customers up to $700 per year in energy. EnerGuide ratings for new homes. So this is a new incentive under a new methodology. HatSmart has provided this incentive in the past. From 2009 to 2011, we had this incentive. However, it was under the old EnerGuide rating system. During that time, 38 homes took advantage of this incentive with approximate funding of $3,100 for a total of $120,000. This new incentive is using the new EnerGuide scale, which demonstrates the energy performance of a home. Investments in energy efficiency during construction result in lower energy bills in the future. It estimates the amount of energy a home consumes in a year. This is the first time this incentive has been offered under the new rating system. Whereas the old rating system monitored homes or measured homes on a scale from 0 to 100, the new system reviews the amount of energy consumed in a typical new home construction. Therefore, the closer the number is to 0, the more efficient the home is. The next incentive is Energy Star rated clothes dryers, so offering an incentive of $75 per installed unit. This program complements the incentive offered through Energy Efficiency Alberta, where they offer energy certified clothes washers. Energy Star rating for clothes dryers began in 2015. This represents a new opportunity for consumers to save. Energy Star rated clothes dryers are about 20% more efficient and result in savings for the customer. So estimated savings over the year would be about 22,000 kilowatt hours and saving the customer approximately $13 per year. The last incentive for 2018 is an air sealing program. So this is a unique opportunity. So right now we're looking at a 10% decrease in air filtration in the home would result in a $500 rebate, 20% $600, up to a maximum of 30% and $700. Air leaks into a home account for approximately 30% or more of heating and cooling costs. Insulation alone does not seal holes in the home's envelope. It covers them. Therefore, air sealing is a perfect complement to an insulation program. The provincial government, through Energy Efficiency Alberta, is currently offering an insulation program. This is another complementary incentive to their program. Reducing air leakage through walls and ceilings is one of the most cost-effective ways to improve energy efficiency and comfort. To qualify, an applicant must complete a pre- and post-blower door test, and it also complements the window and door program offered through Energy Efficiency Alberta. The program as a whole could save consumers 1,400 gigajoules per year. Reducing air filtration by up to 30% results in savings of nearly $70 per year. In addition to the incentives that HatSmart promotes and provides, we also do education and outreach and promotion within the community. We participate in an annual trade show and provide information to consumers. We participate in Earth Hour. We're going to do a light bulb giveaway this year. Earth Day, we partner with our Parks and Recreation Department to support that. Environment Week, we're going to have a booth at Spectrum this year. World Rivers Day, Yellowfish Road is another initiative we're going to support in 2018, as well as our popular Scratch and Win that is administered here at City Hall for those lower value items that customers buy, allow them to take advantage of that. We also provide scholarships and awards through Medicine Hat College, and we also provide educational items to students when we do presentations at schools. To give you an overview of some of the incentives that HatSmart has historically funded, we've offered close to 15,000 rebates over the life of the program and almost $5 million. So certainly not a small initiative for a city our size, but we've supported air conditioning, clothes washers, dishwashers, refrigerators, stoves, dryers, furnaces, hot water heating systems, energy audits, new home EnerGuide ratings, new built green standard incentive, commercial solar programs, as well as conservation upgrades, windows and doors, insulation, energy audits, Scratch and Win, as well as residential PV. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Questions? Councillor Hirsch?
Thanks, Your Worship. Just thank you for the presentation. It's pretty enlightening in the fact that if we do a little bit of investigation in regards to these sort of things that HatSmart offers, that you can actually get money in return. So I think it's great for you to have in your budget that kind of get out the word mentality, and I think it's pretty powerful stuff. My question is relevant to the solar investment that a person would be doing. Certainly a big investment, but I'm curious in terms of the return on investment, what that would look like from a turnaround event. I think a lot of people look at sort of those investments and try to think, okay, when do I actually get my money back, or when do I see some benefits, in addition to doing good things for, the environment. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Through the chair to Councillor Hirsch. Certainly, PV is one of the bigger items. Customers will be out of pocket money to make that investment, but with the incentive, payback obviously varies depending on what energy prices are and that type of thing, and what the tariffs are as far as payback. We are actually developing a calculator that we're going to put on our website to help consumers. We get that question probably 2 or 3 times a year, but payback it varies on system size, consumption within the home, that type of thing. So we're building a tool that will allow consumers to customize it based on their usage patterns, but based on the incentives, it will cut down that payback period in half.
I think that's just a great idea, and I applaud you for doing that. That'll certainly shed some light in terms of those invested dollars. I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Councillor Samraj?
Thank you. I have a couple questions. I know staff have worked hard to align this program with the provincial program that's similar there, but I'm just wondering how it aligns with the city's current strategic priorities. I know in the current document there's some reference to environmental initiatives, but in the 6 ones that are highlighted for 2014 to 2018, there's no mention of any environmental initiative. So I'm wondering how this would fit in with that.
Through the chair to Councillor Samraj, maybe I can jump in. and say a few words about that. I'm not sure it's fair to ask Jared. So as some of you on council will remember, you received the 2016 Community Environmental Roadmap report, and as part of that recommendation, there was a recommendation that this would be the last Community Roadmap report we would prepare, that we would go back and revamp it so that it truly became a city environmental strategy report. So we're in the process of doing that, and in Jared's group, they're looking at creating that environmental strategy for presentation to council and to get your take on what environmental goals you would like us to set. So right now, you're right, there's no specific environmental targets as such associated with HatSmart. HatSmart, yes, it's an environmental program, but it was really originated more as a cost-saving initiative for our customers. And as a way to defer new generation, because you're conserving energy rather than using it. So it had all kinds of different aspects to it. It wasn't really primarily an environmental strategic initiative, but it will in the future be tied in with our environmental roadmap once we get that, bring that forward to you.
I have a follow-up. I guess my follow-up would be then, seeing as Council has not yet articulated what those goals should be, wouldn't it make sense to just table this until we did have those set?
Through the chair, if we didn't have almost 10 years of great history with this program and the strong partnership we have both with the federal and provincial government in delivering this program, I could certainly see the rationale for that thinking. But this is a continuation of a program that's been in place for a long time. If we didn't have it in place, I would say there's no point in putting it in place until we have the strategic measures around it. But as I said, it's delivering so much more than the environmental targets that we will outline in the environmental strategy.
I had another question for the CAO then, thank you, about the amount of staff time that it takes to administer this program.
Through the chair to Councillor Sommerauch, it's probably a little harder to calculate that specifically. Now, historically, we've had one staff member who's sort of been the HatSmart champion and has dealt with the program administration. Now we have a group of 3, but you do so many more things than just HatSmart, so I don't think the total, in the past year, they've probably spent more time going back and forth with the province to align our programs and help support the provincial program rollout than in the past. We've simplified some of our administration. So is it plus minus 1 staff? I would say probably less than 1 staff, because the staff member we had in the past also went out and did field audits and dealt with problematic billing issues with complex bills for customers and things like that. So they did considerably more than just HatSmart administration.
Okay. I guess, and this comment is not for the CEO, but just for the rest of for council here, I guess my concern is that we have a program here where council has not directed any sort of strategic priorities for a number of years, and yes, it's been going on for a long time, but I think that on its own is not necessarily a good thing. The other point I wanted to make is, you're right, I mean, it's something that is popular and makes people feel good, but you know, helping 160 people buy clothes dryers, you know, if you were serious about environmental goals here or something like that, I mean, you would ask them to dry their clothes on a line. I guess I'm just reconsidering my support for this. Thank you.
Okay. We'll work on strategic, water's another example. I mean, we brought to our water conservation, the previous council turned it down, so there's lots of things. And the previous environmental roadmap had 25% renewable energy by the year 2025 or 2020. Absolutely unachievable, and was frankly ridiculous that it was still on paper, so we basically scrapped that. But you're right, there is no strategic direction. But if you were to cancel HatSmart today, we have, the citizens expect this to be rolled out. This is extremely popular. Councillor Friesen?
Excuse me, thank you. I would argue that HatSmart indeed has a strategic direction within the city of Medicine Hat, pardon me, and has for some long period of time. It fits in with our commitment to environmental leadership and stewardship of our resources. It fits into our diversifying our holdings and alternative energy, and just generally showing a leadership that helps conserve and preserve our resources. I would argue vociferously that environmental leadership has been a very strong cornerstone of our leadership in this area, and very innovative, I might say, as well. I know the mayor can attest, speaking about HatSmart and other communities, and they were like, oh, how did you do that? We want to do that too. And it was very clear in his comments that you can't just do it. You really have to show a commitment. It has to be strategic. It has to be well considered and thought out, and it has to show some real strong leadership. So I'm pretty proud of HatSmart. I know every year you look at the various avenues of progressing this, and they're not all the same. Alderman Hurst stole my question about recovering investment, but I am glad to see you're going to have that tool, because it's a question often asked. You know, is this worth it for me? Even though you're helping me, is my pay gap back going to be long enough that I should do it? And, you know, that's one of the primary reasons we do this, is to conserve energy. So I'm really pleased about that. I wanted to ask you about air sealing, because I don't quite know what it means. Obviously, it's windows and doors and air, and I know most of us think about winter air leaks because we can feel them coming in. We very often think about the reverse, our air conditioning going back out. So can you describe just a little bit about what that would look like for a consumer if they decided to take advantage of the air sealing option?
Yep, sure. Through the chair to Councillor Friesen. So the air sealing program is going to be very unique, and it's something that we haven't done in the past, but essentially the consumer would do a blower door test, where the licensed home inspector comes in, seals the door, puts a blower door on, and monitors and identifies where air leakage is occurring. The customer then is aware of where the issues are, whether it's their windows, whether it's insulation, whether it's a drafty air seal underneath the door in the back. Then the consumer makes those improvements. So through Energy Efficiency Alberta, they're able to get windows and doors, as well as upgrade insulation. The inspector comes back, does a post-blower door test, and then you can see the efficiency that's been gained. And based on that percentage, a rebate would be issued based on the savings.
Good, thank you. Councillor Dumanowski.
Well, Your Worship, I'd like to add my accolades to Jared and the department for the HatSmart 6. This is exciting. This has been around a long time. It's hard to believe it's almost been a decade. So many people have taken advantage of this. I love the fact that you showed the litany of different types of funding that we've embarked upon over the years. When I look at the new ones, I see some really innovative ones, as you attested in your comments. I'm a little bit partial to the ones that involve retrofitting older homes, if you will. And I don't mean old homes, I mean older homes, because that to me truly is a testament of environmental stewardship, because you're taking something and really changing the end result. To one point, I will agree with Councillor Samraj about buying a piece of equipment like a dryer. I mean, they all are Energy Star, so in essence, we're offsetting the cost. But if it gives any kind of incentive for them to upgrade if they have an older appliance, then this is incentive enough, I guess, for a lot of people. I guess a comment or question, when I look at the EnerGuide rating, new home one, we have 10,000 maximum rebate, potentially 4 homes. That's 20% of the amount of funding allocated for this one. So obviously we're really serious about this one to see what we can get out of it, being that there are just a handful of homes that are going to be of benefit from that. How are you going to determine who is the benefactor of that? How do you, maybe I missed that detail, but if you have many applicants or people who are interested, how will you determine who the successful people are?
Through the chair to Councillor Dumanowski, that's a great question. So we put the number 4 on there. That's if someone were to build a net zero home. We have no net zero homes in Medicine Hat. Based on the historic information from 2009 to 2011, we estimate about 19 homes could take advantage of that incentive. So that's one of the methods, or one of the things that we looked at, is putting customers into a queue, because we have run out of money in the past. And so we've developed a process for our solar PV systems where applications come in to the electric department, and then that money gets reserved, and we know what size the system is, and we kind of know when to alert customers that, hey, funding's running out. That's one of the things that we're going to work on, as well as that process for new home builds, is having a queue, having developers make us aware that they're building to that standard so that we can reserve funding. It's just going to be tough to know how much to reserve until the final product is complete.
Just thank you for that. One of the other comments I hear often enough, I guess, that it's worthy of bringing up is the assessment that has to take place. Obviously, you have to get the environmental audit or whatever it's called. How onerous is that? Like, I guess I'm saying this on behalf of people out there who are considering doing something, or maybe they're about to start something and they're thinking, well, now it's too late, I can't do it. How much of a turnaround time, if I initiated this tomorrow morning, is there to an audit?
That's a great question. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not a certified energy auditor, but that's something that we'll flush out through the process, and we'll learn. But certainly, it's not an onerous process. I believe with the new rating, it can actually do a calculation based on the type of windows, the type of insulation, that type of information. It's not necessarily a blower door test where that's historically been the type of evaluation that's been complete.
That's great. I guess if they wanted to initiate this, though, what's the typical turnaround time as far as getting one of these audits done? Do you know? If I were going to get some windows done next week and I'm thinking I'm too late, or I need to give a month's notice, how much time is typical? Does anyone know the answer to that? Because I think there's a lot of people out there that would be interested in that, because ultimately we're busy people, and ultimately when we go to doing something, sometimes it's too late, or we fear it's too late, and so we neglect the opportunity that's before us. So I don't know if anyone knows the answer to that, but I think that's a critical piece to this, is letting people know that it is, I hope, seamless and quick and easy to do, and ultimately there's some opportunities that can be had if they do it.
Thank you. Councillor Turnbull?
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate Councillor Sabarz's questions. I come from it at a little different point of view, is that I can remember when the price of electricity soared, people were complaining about their bills, and gas prices were through the ceiling. And so the wisdom of the city back then was, we need to educate the public and how they can reduce their energy usage in their homes. And so the council put on at that time, if you use so much energy, you'll have to pay a price, and this would go to HatSmart, which is a $200,000 a year education program. Plus, it allows those people who perhaps could take advantage of getting into gas rather than electricity in their things, their furnaces that were old clunkers, that were not very efficient. And so I think that the program allows us to continue to say, look, energy is not cheap. Energy is getting, although it's cheap right now as comparison to what it has been, but who knows when the next spike comes. So I think it's a great program. It's not an expensive program. I appreciate the councillors' input on some of those questions. And the great thing about democracy is we can debate these things in a public forum. And one of the advantages you have is you could move if you can get a seconder, and council could vote if you thought it should go back to committee. But I will tell you, I think it's a great program for those reasons, and I'd like to see us at some point expand that, because the use of energy is going to become more and more priority for families. So, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Varga.
Through the chair, I got a few questions, but I think most of them would be answered on the website, I would imagine, as to how it works and what the cost would be to do some of these things, I believe, right? Because a test in your home for the air comes with a cost, I believe, correct? And also, I guess my other question was, on the new homes, when does that rebate take effect? After the home's been lived in for a year, or, because I know you can go by data and what the people did in the house, but that still doesn't mean that you're saving energy by how the house was built. So I guess you have to have the house going and being lived in order for you to see whether you're actually saving money with the way it was designed and built. Am I correct in figuring that out, as how that rebate's going to be paid out?
So through the chair to Councillor Varga, the rebate will be either issued to the developer or the person who purchases the home, depending on what stage it's at. So if the house is purchased, we don't necessarily need to see energy consumption based on the calculations under the new rating system. So it's not based on actual consumption, it's based on a calculation.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Get a motion for reception.
I'll move reception.
So moved.
If we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you. Thanks.
Moving on now to our first public hearing, item 5.1. You'll find the City Centre Development Agency 2018 budget. If you look in your packet, the information is under the Admin Committee for December 6th, which is item 7.2, and this is up for adoption. I received no submissions on this item.
So we have to have a public hearing. I'll ask if anyone would like to come down and speak for or against this budget. Please come down and state your name. I'll ask a second time if anybody would like to come down and speak for or against. Please come down and state your name. I will ask a third and final time if anyone would like to come down and speak for or against. Please come down and state your name. All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. We can deal with this when we get to the admin. Want to do it now? Okay. So if I could get a motion for adoption. Any questions or comments on the CCDA budget as presented?
Page 114.
Yeah. Councillor Samraj?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm the council representative for the CCDA for the next few years, and it was good to talk to them. They've had a challenging few years, but they've done good work to make some real improvements there. And I think the biggest thing that everyone here is happy to see is that the Monarch is no longer losing money and that they turned a small profit this year, which is really important. So there's still a lot of work to do, but I think they're making good progress. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Hirsch?
Thanks, Your Worship, and I'm not sure who can speak to it, but I do have a question in regards to the budget article number 1, which talks about a purpose-specific reserve with any surplus funds, and I just need to have an understanding, and maybe Councillor Samraj, if you can elaborate a little bit on what that means.
Councillor Samraj wasn't there. If you want to, at the time when we allowed this, it was last year when they had a significant surplus due to the lack of an executive director, and it was a request from the CCDA board. CO, do you want to talk about it?
Through the chair to Councillor Hirsch. So they were in a unique situation and actually had a little bit of a surplus, as the mayor mentioned, because of a vacancy. And we're looking for, it's very hard for an agency that has exactly 12 months' worth of operating cost and budget and absolutely no cushion. And so they were looking to carry over some funds, and in accordance with the way they are structured and the governance authority over this, it had to be approved by council if they were to be able to set up a reserve. So that's why we said it has to have a purpose. The purpose can be to cushion their operating expenses or whatever, but it needs to be a stated purpose, and there has to be a certain limit to what can be put in there. But I believe council last year approved that they would be allowed to set up that kind of reserve and hold a little bit of operating cash to have a cushion.
Is that okay?
That's fine, thanks.
Yeah. Councillor Turner?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a couple of comments. Number one, I'm really happy to see that the budget this year is much more realistic, and it looks like it's actually achievable, so that's good. The other comment I have, and it's really, when we went to look at voting who goes on to the CDA board, I guess I have to say I was somewhat disappointed. I think there was only 2 business people from the downtown area that actually had applied to sit on that board, and I would think, you know, if I'm in business downtown and it's my tax money being spent, that maybe I would like to be sitting on that board to have some input into how the money is spent and what kind of promotions we're going to have. And so maybe in the future, when those openings come up again, I would love to see a few more downtown business people on that, put those applications in.
Good, thanks. Any other questions or comments? So we have a motion and a seconder for adoption. If we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Moving along to non-statutory public hearings, we have a whack them here, and they're all rate bylaws. Is there any appetite to do the public hearing omnibus?
Yes, there is. Do we need a motion to do these omnibus?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor, or sorry, if you call the question. That was unanimous, thank you.
All right, so I'll just read through all the bylaws here, and then you can get going on the public hearing. And I've received no submissions for any of these either. Bylaw 4449, the bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend bylaw 2379, the water service bylaw. Bylaw 4450 to amend bylaw 1541, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat regulating the use of public and private sewers and drains and the disposal of sewage and the discharge of waters and waste into the Medicine Hat sewer system. Bylaw 4451, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend bylaw 1805, the waste bylaw. Bylaw 4452, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend bylaw 2244, the electric utility bylaw. And bylaw 4453, bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend bylaw 2489, the gas utility bylaw.
So we have to have a public hearing. I'll ask if anyone would like to come down and speak for or against any of these bylaws. Please come down and state your name. I'll ask a second time if anybody would like to come down and speak for or against any one of or all of these bylaws. Please come down and state your name. And a third and final time, if anyone would like to come down and speak for or against any of these bylaws, please come down, state your name. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, and we can go for second and third readings.
Yep, so first, bylaw 4449, bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend bylaw 2379, water service bylaw. This is now for second and third reading.
Councillor Turnbull, if you'd like to move it for a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this bylaw? All right, seeing none, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you. We go for third reading on this one.
I'll move bylaw 4449 be read a third time and passed.
I'll second that.
Any questions or comments? All right, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Now for second and third reading, bylaw 4450 to amend bylaw 1541, bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat regulating the use of public and private sewers and drains and the disposal of sewage and the discharge of waters and waste into the Medicine Hat sewer system.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? We could vote. It was unanimous, thank you.
I'll move bylaw 4450 be read a third time and passed.
Any questions or comments? Okay, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Next bylaw for second and third reading is bylaw 4451, bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend bylaw 1805, the waste bylaw.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
I'll move bylaw 4451 be read a third time and passed.
Any questions or comments? All right, if we could call the question. That was unanimous, thank you.
Second and third reading for bylaw 4452, bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend bylaw 2244, the electric utility bylaw.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All right, if we could vote. And that was unanimous, thank you.
I'll move bylaw 4452 be read a third time and passed.
Second.
Any comments, questions? All right, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Second and third reading for bylaw 4453, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend bylaw 2489, the gas utility bylaw.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? If we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
I'll move bylaw 4453 be read a third time and passed.
Second that.
Any questions or comments? If we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Getting very festive here tonight. Moving on to reports. Our first report is item 7.1 on page 82, the Audit Committee meeting of November 30th, and this is for information.
We can move it for information.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any comments, questions? Councillor Friesen?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair to the, I guess, the chair of the Audit Committee, I just wondered, you know, audit is a time to really consider a thorough examination of the finances of the municipality. It's very important. And rather than just passing it for information, I wonder if you might be able to just give us a very big picture sense of the general financial health of the community. We always talk about it. We talk about it at every election. There are those who feel the sky's falling. There are those who feel there are windfalls and everything in between. I just wonder if you could just give us a little bit of a sense.
Thanks through the chair to Councillor Friesen. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to that, actually. As a new councillor, I guess, again, part of the challenge that I looked at on the financial side of things was a little bit of an understanding in terms of where we're at financially, and I think, quite frankly, now having the ability to digest the details of the financials, I'm very happy to say that we're in good financial shape. Having said that, I think it's our duty as councillors to follow that, and I'm very happy to sit on audit in regards to that. So what the Audit Committee does in terms of its kind of terms of reference is certainly to kind of do a deeper dive into the quarterly statement of affairs for the City of Medicine Hat. Having said that, I'm very happy. Obviously, with any type of budget, there's unforeseen issues that can come up that can affect the budget. Having said that, you'll see that in your packet. But for the most part, I'm very pleased in terms of the financial position it's in. Knowing that we have a utility in addition to the municipality, one could concede that we are in a situation where we have a bit more debt, but quite frankly, we run an operation that is the envy of the province of Alberta in other municipalities. So again, tip my cap to all the people that were involved in terms of the budget, and Commissioner Mestel's got his head down over there, but I really appreciate the efforts that have done to give us such comprehensive information.
Thank you. Councillor Turner?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I just have a general question to the CEO. I know we've been working over the last year or so, probably 2 years now, on this new accounting package, and I'm just wondering if we're finished or we're getting close to being finished. And if we are, would that speed up the fact of us getting our our quarterly statements faster? Because we're kind of at the end of, almost at the end of the fourth quarter, and we're just getting our third quarter now, so.
Through the chair to Councillor Turner, yes, Aggresso is now fully implemented. We went live this fall. It doesn't mean we're finished. It will be a continual improvement process in terms of continuing to upgrade and put in place interfaces with other systems and so on. So there will be ongoing work with Aggresso, but it is now our core enterprise system, including financials. Over time, yes, we will get our reporting timelines down. As you recall, we had council's permission to go to 3 times a year reporting as opposed to quarterly reporting going forward. And we'll certainly work towards more timely reports to council. But as with all new systems, it will take us a little while to get really efficient at using it.
Councillor Turnbull?
Yes, thank you. So audit reports are massive. It's a massive financial report. And sometimes it can be overwhelming for even us on council, because we have to spend a lot of time to try to understand where we are for what we've budgeted, where we are for actual, what's happening in the world's economics, what's happening for commodity prices. But if anybody has an interest, and really, because I know a lot of people don't want to read 36 pages of financial report, I really found the pages 84, 85, 91, 101, 104, and 107. If you read those pages, it'll give you a pretty good snapshot of our city. And as Councillor Hirsch just said, we've just got on council, so we're really looking more forward to the year-end results so that we can see, in fact, did the city come in on budget? Where can we make changes for the coming year, and where our savings can be? So that's just my comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Well said. Any other questions or comments? All right. Councillor Hirsch.
Sorry, Your Worship, I just want to jump on Councillor Turnbull's observation. It'll be definitely interesting at the end of the year to kind of, looking at a budget within a snapshot and within the years, certainly something that we're endeavoring to do. But it's interesting as we evolve into the annual at the end of the year to see where the trends are. And I think that's important for citizens to know where are we headed, where have we been, and where the expenditures are going. So I think towards the end of the year, when we get the final financial picture in there, that'll be a very telling story.
Yep. Okay. Don't see any more questions or comments. If we could vote. That was unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, you've dealt with item 7.2, which was the CCDA budget. So now we move on to item 7.3, page 120, Energy and Utilities Committee meeting. And this is the HatSmart item for adoption.
Any other, okay, sorry, can I get a motion?
So moved.
For adoption, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Samraj?
I'm going to be voting no on this, and here's why. The question isn't whether conservation is a good goal. It's whether HatSmart, as it's currently instituted, is effective in meeting that goal. And as we've admitted here around this table, there is no strategic plan related to what our goals actually are. There is one, the community roadmap, which is not council's but the community's plan, which, as Bill Cox, the former chair, admitted in 2016, they just made up the numbers. I mean, they thought 20% reduction in energy conservation by 2020 was something that was achievable, but it's not. So I guess absence any of those things, I fail to see how we can let this program continue. And especially in light of the financial challenges that the city is facing for not strategic part of decisions, I don't see how we make decisions. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Turnbull?
Well, again, it's a great question. I have to differ with you because this is not money out of the city's budget. This is money that our citizens, who have used more energy than the norms, have put into this program to educate or to help themselves take advantage of this amount of money. So I had my attic done last year, got a rebate, thought it was great. My house is warmer, use less energy, and so for me, that program worked, and 15,000 citizens of Medicine Hat over the last 10 years have used this program on an average of $332 rebate per customer, which I think tells you that our customers really like HatSmart and are getting educated on the use of energy and how best they can reduce their particular, what's the word I'm looking for?
Footprint.
Part of using energy as a total city. Thank you.
Are you still on the list again, Councillor Simon? Just you again? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Through the chair to Councillor Turnbull. Yes, it has been very popular, and it's been popular because we've been giving rebates on things that people might probably buy already. I guess, I don't fault staff for this. I mean, I feel like the council has dropped the ball here, where we haven't had an actual goal here. Thank you.
Did I answer?
Go ahead.
That's true, but you have to remember, not everybody has the same income. So what we've got here is a lot of people who badly needed a new furnace and used the rebates to ensure that they were able to do that. Plus, it was helping the city. So I don't want to go back and forth, but I do respect you, Councilor Samaraj, and I think your comments are always quite interesting because you see council in a totally different light than some of us who were on before and some who've been around for 19 years. Is it the oldest here, 19 years? So I think it's good, and I think the public likes the fact that we debate and we don't just yes, 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 and so that's my point of view.
Thank you. Councillor Samaraj?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Turnbull. Yes, I mean, if the program was created in a way to help people who couldn't afford some of these things to afford them, perhaps. But I mean, if you look at the way that we're actually allocating the money, 4 people in the cities are going to get $10,000 each for new homes. $80,000 for 16 people are going to get $5,000 for solar things. I mean, the benefits for this program are not spread out. I mean, they're quite specific to a small number of people in the city. Thank you.
Well, there is a scratch and win, and that's for small items as well. But Councillor Hirsch?
Well, Your Worship, I'm in favor of HatSmart, even since in its inception. I think, I appreciate the back and forth on this for sure. I think this is something that, quite frankly, we could probably certainly look at tonight, but on a go-forward basis, have that we're certainly coming up to some strategic planning in January. And I think that this is something that I would definitely love to have a conversation over in terms of where we're headed.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Friesen?
I would again submit that we do have, this is part of our goals for the city. Part of our, goals is the wrong word. It's part of the strategic direction established for our city. Where we get tangled up a little bit sometimes with these things, I think, is a new council turns over and there's different points of view, which is very healthy. But if we ground to a halt on every single thing we do as a city, operationally or policy, as a policy directive, every time there was a change in council, the city would look like this little mountainous terrain. We'd be up here and we'd be operational. We'd come to a grinding halt at the end of an election. Then we'd be up and operational. We'd come to a clunk to a grinding halt. We have to be able to create an environment of consistency and stability for people. And I again submit, this is well within our priority around energy overall. And I'm a strong supporter. I think that it just advances our position that we've established. And so I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I just can't let it go by without the impression being left that it is something that we have to decide on every year before we can do it. If we decided on every operational item that was not driven by a strategic priority, we would be in strategic planning for about 20 days, and we would rob staff of the ability to implement the strategic direction we've established for them.
I would love to spend 20 days in strategic planning. Councillor Turnbull?
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I have to defend my fellow councilman, Councilor Samrash. He brings, as I said, a fresh view to that. I think Councilor Hirsch was absolutely right. We're going to go into 8 to 10 hour meeting on planning our long-term strategies, and some of these issues are going to come up. All kinds of different issues that new members of council and some of the returning councilors would like to see happen. So, good on you.
Okay, Councillor Samraj?
One final comment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For Councillor Friesen, I guess I would dispute whether council does have a goal here. Part of any goal is that it needs to be measurable. I'm not sure what the measurable goal is and how we know whether we've actually achieved that here. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Dumanowski?
Well, Robin Hood was known for stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. And in essence, the moral dilemma was more around how to level the playing field. I look at the backstop of HatSmart really is kind of in a similar vein. We're taking a surcharge that we're saying and adjusting accordingly to people's utilities if we believe they are using more than they ought to. And we're taking that money and we're saying, you know what? We have an opportunity to use this now to educate, to improve, to enhance the life, not necessarily of the poor, but people who from all across walks of the community have the opportunity to benefit. So in essence, without that surcharge, we wouldn't have HatSmart. And without HatSmart, we wouldn't be able to create that incentive. So I really do see it as a truly good news story.
Yeah, as Councillor Friesen mentioned about, I often used to go and speak about HatSmart, and every community in this country wants a HatSmart. And I would always start my presentation with, you need a funding source, because none of the other communities had a funding source because they own their own utilities. And so we only take a surcharge on gas and electricity, and basically the rebates go back to high users of gas and electricity if they want to bring their consumption down. The reason why there is no water conservation in HatSmart is because we don't charge people too much extra if they use a lot of water. So the program is basically self-funding, and it's basically net zero other than the cost of the employees. So it is achieving its goal of helping high users use less. So there, I think, and there are measurable goals. I mean, you saw all the measurables. If you do this, you save $700 a year. If you do this, you save $13 a year. So there are some measurables there, I think. And the other part of this, and whether you agree with the province of Alberta or not, and Energy Efficiency Alberta or a carbon tax, the fact of the matter is when they decided to do Energy Efficiency Alberta, where did they come? They came to the leader in the country to learn how to do it, and that was our HatSmart program. So there is some value in that as well, I think. What's that? Okay, so call the question. Councillor Turnbull? And that was 8 in favor and 1 opposed.
All right, moving on to item 7.4, page 133, Admin and Ledger Review Committee, and this is just for information.
I'm going to
Move reception.
Second.
for information. Okay, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Item 7.5 on page 134, the Public Services Committee meeting, December 11th. And this is for adoption and information with the URAB Sports Hall of Fame and the Communities in Bloom for adoption.
I'll move that. Oops, sorry, I'm on the wrong report.
That's okay.
So, sorry, I'm here. Okay, Councillor Varga?
But I didn't move it.
Oh,
Did
great.
you move?
I'll retract my move.
Okay. I'll move it, but I'd like to just outline it before we go forward.
Okay, can I get a seconder?
It's Christmas time, we're all losing it.
Second.
Okay. So you just want to say something openly? Mr. Friesen?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just in terms of an overview, in case there are no questions, you have before you the recommendation from URAB about the Sports Wall of Fame. Very good news to see 2 candidates. We don't see them every year, and that's great news. I hope you can support that. You'll see for adoption future direction for Communities in Bloom. I'm quite excited about that. As you well know, the committee has not been active the last couple of years, and staff were tasked with looking at the future of Communities in Bloom. They've done a lot of work on this, and you'll see the recommendation before you. You've heard about the library, and the last one I want to just make a brief comment on is the community garden. Former Councillor Simmons is up there in the gallery, smiling away that she doesn't have to be down here. And this community garden was really quite exciting. We saw a slideshow about it, but you know, it was built by volunteers for the community. The food bank, the people who go to the food bank, their children, the people in the community, no one's turned away. The food that you don't, it's not just about growing it, it's about learning to grow it, learning how to maintain it, learning how to harvest it, how to use it, how to cook it in a community kitchen, the social aspects of cooking, the life skill aspects of cooking. And then also heard about the conversion of some of the city flower beds to grow edible items rather than just flowers. Very exciting, really represents a lot of insight in what could be in terms of providing food for our community in a new way. So I just wanted to highlight that in case there weren't any questions, and thank the food bank for their creativity and their commitment to the people in this community.
Okay, Councillor Varga.
Through the chair, just a couple comments on some of the sections. Number one, of course, I'm very happy to see. I don't know Miss Jenna Cunningham as much as I can, but she's a hockey player, which is true to my heart, and glad to see that she's going on the Wall of Fame. And Miss Gata Bow, which I've had relationship with over a lot of years in the minor hockey system, and her great work with teaching kids how to skate, and I think it's very important, and it's great for her. I'm glad to see that. As far as number two, the communities in bloom, the City of Medicine Hat is always usually really keen on being a great city for communities in bloom. I guess I'm a little disappointed that we got to wait a couple years till we get things going again, but our city takes great pride in having great communities and great looking yards, great looking flower beds, great in anything that happens within the community, and I think it serves well that we become part of that, where we might get a recognition for being a great community in bloom in the future. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the new program's going to unveil and who's going to take it by the horns and move forward with it. I see that staff's going to do some of that, so I'm very happy. The food bank, of course, is close to my heart. With giving the opportunity for people to actually do some gardening within our community. So I'm hoping that maybe in the future we can do a few more things for people in the community that want to grow vegetables or grow something in a garden. So I'm very happy with that point. So it's very easy to say yes to some of these things, and I'm glad to see some of the people getting recognition and being put on the Wall of Fame. It's great to see.
Thank you. Councillor Somraj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if we could separate these items when we
Is
vote
there
on
an
them.
item in particular that you are...
Communities in bloom.
Okay, so how about we get a motion from someone that we deal with items 1, 3, and 4, and then we'll deal with item 2 separately. Councillor McIntosh?
Second.
Okay, if we could vote on separating out communities in bloom. Okay, that was unanimous. So right now we'll deal with 1, 3, and 4, and then we'll deal with item 2 last. So any other comment, Councillor Turner, on 1, 3, and 4?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make a comment on the community gardens. It's something I found out at when we had our committee meeting, and I was quite surprised by. Over the summer, I had people contact me and say, "Man, why is the city staff going and looking after these gardens that are not at the food bank, but in our flower beds?" And I was surprised to find out that it actually costs a lot less as far as labor goes to look after carrots or whatever than it does if there's flowers there. So I guess that's really a saving in labor by having those and feeding people as well. So hopefully we can expand that program next year.
Good. Any other comments on the 3 items? All right, if we could vote on items 1, 3, and 4. There we go. That was unanimous. So Councillor Somraj, I'm assuming you would like to speak on item 2. Go ahead.
Just for a little background for those of you in the gallery here and for Council for Communities in Bloom, this the committee for Communities in Bloom came before Council here. I think it was in January 2016, and and they disbanded because they had difficulty in getting enough volunteers to keep up with this project. So they didn't want to let it die because it has done a lot of good for the community in the past, and people have worked very hard on it. And so they asked council for help. Council directed staff to see if there was an option of something that we could do there. So staff have come back with this option to not compete every year, but once every 3 years there, and then to be in the Friends category for the other 2 years. I guess my concern about Communities in Bloom is, and maybe I would have a question for the CAO on this. If we did not support this and Communities in Bloom died, what would the average citizen notice, or any? Or is that too hard of a question?
I don't know that the citizen would notice anything different. Now, this is political, this is opinion. Most of the work was done by our Parks Department and Flowers. Now, the Communities in Bloom changed over time. So they called it Bloom. Is your community growing? Is your community diversifying? Is your community inclusive? Is your community welcome? So it wasn't just about flowers. And we competed on the federal level, not just this for provincial. And Councillor Friesen can maybe help me on this a little bit. But most of it was done by our Parks Department. And then, of course, the judges would come. And we would win, frankly, or do very, very well. And when you win, you're not allowed to compete the next year or two in a row, because as a previous winner. And so really, oftentimes, it was just judges coming around and looking at the city and giving some feedback. So the average citizen, as long as our Parks Department is keeping up the parks and the flowers and their citizens, of course, the Kiwanis Club has the best neighborhood and goes around and judges at Kiwanis. Yeah. And so our citizens take an active part in it as well, but I don't know that the average citizen would notice any difference between whether we're a competitive city or not. That's my opinion. Councillor Friesen?
Thank you. Just maybe I'll add a tiny bit to the background. You know, Communities in Bloom has, people usually associate it with flowers and beauty in a community, which is certainly a big part of Communities in Bloom, but it always had a far bigger mandate. The pillars talk about civic pride, environmental responsibility, the beautification part, and just more of a community development general approach, which was very much the case with Communities in Bloom locally. There was a city representative, there was someone there from Public Services. Some of the members are in this gallery tonight, who showed real leadership over many years in Communities in Bloom. There are national conventions. When you compete in a category, there are judges from across Canada that come and judge communities. We have certainly won. We have competed and been in front runners. They've changed the scoring system and that kind of thing. And we've also had non-competitive years, as is suggested in this item. You know, the committee that was involved gave so much of themselves, so many volunteer hours. They were getting tired, and I joined them for the last conference I think they went to in Kamloops, and that community, that municipality was far more involved than our municipality. Now, I don't want to compare it because every municipality has a different kind of involvement and so on, and that's fine. But I think it probably reminded the members that they were tired and they really needed some support. And so they came back and said, we need a break. We need a break from this. Will you help us? Will you help look at it? And as Councillor Samraj said, Council asked staff to have a look at this and see what it could be. And there's a great deal of work that's gone into this. Mr. Sharp is here tonight as well, and he's been very involved in that. Talking to the past participants, talking to the past committee members, talking to the community, trying to get a sense of things, talking to other communities who compete in Communities in Bloom, well, are either friends in some years or compete. And they found a number of interesting things, and one of them is that Communities in Bloom, this is not common only to our community, it's struggling in other communities as well, but they are keeping a level of involvement one way or another. So I really feel that Communities in Bloom may not demonstrate enormous difference in a community, but there is a difference. There was a flower every year where you would see this proliferation of flowers whatever the flower of the year would be, throughout the city. The committee would see great amounts of community cleanup and litter control. There would be flower beds hosted by service clubs. They had business awards in the downtown community to help beautify that area, and many more. And Judy, you could speak to many of those. I'm sure I'm missing a lot. But the sense of community pride around Communities in Bloom was always very intriguing to me, because when the first one I went to, I was sort of like, well, you know, what is this? I'm not that great a gardener. I don't really get it. But I found out that it truly was a source of community pride. So to speak in favor of this motion, it does not look at participating every year. It's a lot of work. But it talks about keeping your finger in the game, and in every 3 years participate in one of the competitive categories. We're already in the business of community development and community beautification. Those members on the committee didn't say, we quit, we're leaving forever. They said, we need some help. We'll still be involved. Help us, we'll help you. I think this is an amazing initiative that across the province and the country has brought positive attention to communities through the various competitions. And I would really support this. It's not a huge budget item. We're in the business anyway. Those folks deserve some support, and I really hope that you'll choose to support this.
Councillor Hirsch, well said, Councillor Friesen.
Well, Your Worship, and I certainly tip my cap to the volunteers that have done it over many years, and I recall, I think it was 2007, last time we won the award, which is very prestigious. Having said that, I'm just wondering, you know, if times have changed, and we're looking, I can't help but look at item number 3, which is almost a practical application to these flower beds. One can argue that that is a sense of practical application to still something of an eye to behold in terms of the beautification of our community. But again, I think, you know, whether or not the costs, and I don't know, quite frankly, and I can't recall what the cost is, and that's one of my questions. But having said that, I just don't know now if in fact our community has shifted a little bit to the utilization and the implementation of a more practical program in terms of vegetables, etc., which is absolutely makes me excited in a different realm. So again, I'm having troubles with the conflict in item 2, and which is kind of ironic that it's right in the same report for item number 3.
Can I just address that?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't usually do that. I just want to let Alderman Hirsch and others know that this is exactly the kind of initiative that Communities in Bloom would see totally fit within their mandate, the vegetables in the flower gardens, because it's not just about flowers. They would be so excited to cut, the judges would, I can tell you, because they look for uniqueness and creativity and innovation in this area. They would come to our community and look at those vegetable gardens being grown in the traditional flower beds and be highly excited. So it fits, that initiative and others like it fit squarely within the broad pillars of Communities in Bloom.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Samrush.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're right. I mean, the strength of Communities in Bloom is the community involvement that each program brings. I guess in this case, and I don't doubt that historically the group that did this was extremely dedicated and worked extremely hard. But I think like a lot of other organizations in the city or other boards or projects have struggled to find volunteers there. So, I mean, I agree that there's great potential with this program, but here we've essentially asked staff to take over the leadership of this project at a time when staff are pretty stretched thin. Something like this, I would feel much more comfortable if it was actually community-led and not city-led for this there. So I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Varga.
Through the chair, since there's been so much talk about this, I would love to see a Plan B. You know what I mean? Like a different plan, like maybe not where we're talking about different things here now, but we're showing that because there's no interest from the community or somebody to run. There's interest from the community, don't get me wrong, there's interest from the community. But it's just that we need some new people to take this on, I believe, right? Or grab the ball and take it and go and run with it. I know that the city's going to get involved and we're still going to do it, right? But it would be nice to have maybe where the community gets involved a little bit more with new people through the help of the old committee to move this forward. Maybe that's been done. I don't know. Maybe that's been done. Yeah, so.
Okay, Councillor McIntosh.
Thanks, Your Worship. So I told Mr. Sharp that I wasn't going to ask him a question tonight, but I think I'm going to right now. In terms of the amount of money that would be going into this program, we're looking at $500 for the registration fee, but there's about a $13,000 budgeted amount each year. What is that money that is going towards growing plants that end up in community gardens anyway?
Through the chair, no, it's mostly around hosting expenses of the judges, promotional materials to celebrate the community and the aspects that go with the competition.
Go ahead.
So I travel to a lot of different areas around this province, and driving through cities, towns, you drive into a town and you see that Communities in Bloom winner 2005, that community has a feel to it as you drive through that community. Our community has that pride of what the community looks like. That goes to the work that the city staff do, but it also goes to the work that Communities in Bloom have done over the years. And I truly think that continuing as a city to support the work the city does, but also building that volunteer base, I think is incredibly important, and it does speak to the pride we have in our city.
Okay, so I basically think that I think council can vote on this, and then those that are against it can just vote against. I don't see a motion to amend this in any way, or I don't see a motion to table it perhaps for other options. So I'm not seeing that coming. So I think we'll just call the question on this for adoption. And that was 7 in favor and 2 against. You want to make one more last comment?
We voted.
Okay.
It's just about the sign, actually. So the city won in 2007. I'm just curious of how much longer we keep the sign up. Obviously, it's a source of great pride, but do we wait for 15 years, 20 years before we change that?
I'm not a sports guy, but how long was Edmonton the city of champions? As long as it's, yeah, until it's completely obliterated. Okay.
All right, item 7.6, page 179, Corporate Services Committee of December 12th for information.
So moved.
Got a seconder?
Second.
We could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Item 7.7 on page 180, you'll find the Municipal Names Committee of December 12th. This is for adoption, request to add Williams to the names registry.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Absolutely a deserving individual, that's for sure. My only comment is that we have this massive list of names that we keep adding to, but we don't ever name anything. And so I would like to see us in the next 4 years actually put some of these names on this list on some parks or roads or something. So rather than just keep adding names to the list, if this council could endeavor to actually name something after these people. It's quite, I think that's really why we started this committee to begin with now. And of course, we've talked to the Commissioner of Development and Infrastructure when new subdivisions come forward, that we need to start naming some individuals with roads or signs or something in parks. But I just want to, we got 4 years to start naming things. So if the city clerk would like to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm the chair of the Names Committee, and yes, we do have a long list. I also am aware of potentially 3 naming requests coming up. One of them is a park, and one of them is for a small subdivision as well. So hopefully there'll be some more action in that area in the new year.
Good. Any other comments? Councillor Varga?
Mr. Mayor, since there's so many names, I'd love to see the Ross Glen area take a few different names than Ross Glen this and Ross Glen that. There's quite a few in there, so it would be maybe good to change some of those names so people know where they're going.
Yeah, I wasn't getting at that because that was a huge amount of confusion and addresses and postal codes and everything, but going forward with new. Okay, any other comments? If we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Next, you'll find item 7.8, the Admin Committee meeting, December 13th, page 185. This is a change in funding for adoption.
I'll move for adoption.
Second.
Okay, no questions or comments? All right, let's vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Item 7.9, page 189, the Development and Infrastructure Committee meeting, December 13th. Again, this is for adoption on the CamWest
So moved.
lease.
Comments, questions? All right, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Reports for reception. Our first one's item 8.1, page 194. Municipal Planning Commission meeting minutes of November 22nd.
I move this report for reception.
Second.
Comments, questions? All right. That was unanimous, thank you.
8.2, page 200, you'll find the draft minutes of the Medicine Hat Police Commission of November 16th and the Police Chief's report.
I move that for reception.
Second.
Any comments, questions? All right, if we could vote. It's unanimous, thank you.
Bylaws for second and third readings. 9.1 on page 234, bylaw 4448. Bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend bylaw 3191, the tax penalties bylaw.
Your Worship, it has said bylaw 4448 be read a second time.
Second.
Any questions or comments? We could vote. That was unanimous.
It has said bylaw 4448 be read a third time and passed.
Second.
Any comments, questions? All right, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Moving along now to new bylaws, just for first reading. Item 10.1, page 236. Bylaw 4457, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend bylaw 3007, the City of Medicine Hat Municipal Planning Commission bylaw.
I move for leave to introduce bylaw number 4457, and that'll be read a first time.
Second.
If we could vote. That was unanimous.
10.2, page 237, bylaw 4458, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend bylaw 4168, the City of Medicine Hat land use bylaw.
I move for leave to introduce bylaw number 4458, and that'll be read a first time.
Second.
If we could vote. That was unanimous.
Next, we have 10.3 on page 241. Bylaw 4459, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to incur indebtedness in the amount of $3 million for the purpose of MHS 9 substation interconnection.
I move that, this is first reading, correct?
Yes.
I move for leave to introduce bylaw number 4459, a bylaw of City of Medicine Hat to indebtedness of $3 million for the substation interconnection.
Second. If we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
I just wanted to have a comment on that.
Sure, go ahead. One quick.
When this item came up previously, when we were going through the rates for the utilities, and I suggested that we look at the fact that this is not a cost, or it is an investment in the business of our utilities, and I am confident that by the end of 2018, that we will see results good results of this investment. So, ladies and gentlemen, think about the fact that we are going to get this money back several times over before the end of 2018.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so I've received no notice of motion, so we'll move along now to item 12, which is our new business. And we have the appointments to the City of Medicine Hat Advisory Boards, Commissions, Committee and Agencies for 2018 for adoption. The CAO will be passing around ballots for Council to vote on their preferred candidates for the vacancies. We'll have a quick recess. Once Council have voted, then the CAO and the City Solicitor will tally up the votes, and I will read out the results. Thank you. We do have a revote on the police commission, please.
Go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to read the lucky winners. Councillor Turner. I am going to read the lucky winners and the appointees for the 2018 Boards, Commissions, Committees and Agencies into the record, followed by a vote to adopt and to destroy the ballots. If I can just get a...
You want that motion now?
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right. Arts and Heritage Advisory Board. There are 2 vacancies, and the appointees are Aisha Juki and Carl Schwanek. City Centre Development Agency, 5 vacancies. We have Brian Dijon, George Osmond, Maureen Roberts, Colette Smithers, and for a one-year term, Russell Franks. Combative Sports Commission, we have Todd Pember. Heritage Resources Committee, we have Sally Sain. Local Assessment Review Board, we have Doug Major. Municipal Planning Commission, we have Loretta Thompson. Police Commission, for a 2-year term, we have Mandy Campbell, and for 3-year terms, we have Terry Mindiger and Ted Rodich. Public Library Board. For a 3-year term, Judy Coombs, Jennifer Greer, and Avril Torrance, and for a 2-year term, Daniel Swain. Social Development Advisory Board, we have Vanessa Bonneville for 2 years and Mary Tulip for 2 years. Subdivision and Development Appeal Board for 3 years, Jim Taylor. Urban Environment and Recreation Advisory Board, which is URAB, 3-year terms, Dina Jubrak, Mika Clem, and Pat McIntosh. And Youth Advisory Board for 2 years, Sam Bretfold, Sydney Campbell, and Jackson Moore.
We have a motion for adoption and to...
So moved.
Second.
Go, whoa, sorry.
Sorry, that writing was not too good. Sheila Donner. Thank you.
We already have the motion to adopt and to destroy the ballots and a seconder, so if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you. Seeing no more business before this council, we're adjourned.